Welcome you all for a critical analysis of two aspects of language and two types of Aphasic disturbances by Roman Jakobson. An introduction to Roman Jakobson. Roman Jakobson was a Russian-American linguist and literary theorist. He was one of the most celebrated and influential linguists of the 20th century. Who is called a linguist? A linguist is a person who studies linguistics. And linguistics is the study of language. Linguistics is related to the philosophy of language, rhetoric or diction, semiotics or the signs and symbols used in a language, lexicography, the activity of compiling dictionaries, and translation. He is also one of the leading members of Russian Formalism and a founder of the Prague School of Linguistics. Russian Formalism? Yes. Like New Criticism, it emphasizes close reading and the role of literary devices and the exclusion of cultural and historical approaches in a text. And Prague is the city in Czech Republic, a country in Europe, and Prague School included the most prominent members of Russian linguists, and Roman Jakobson is one among them. Pioneer of structural linguistics, he was heavily influenced by Ferdinand de Saussure, who laid the foundation for structuralism. And later, Roman Jakobson had profound influence on Claude Lévi-Strauss, Roland Barthes, and Noam Chomsky. These are the literary theorists who developed the concept of structuralism and structural anthropology, and they belong to the movement of post-structuralism. Thus, Roman Jakobson stands as a link between formalism and structuralism. It is to be noted that he is such a literary theorist whose approach is mainly that of a linguist. They say two aspects of language and two types of Aphasic disturbances is a seminal or groundbreaking influential text in structural analysis. Note the point, structural analysis. So the essay is going to analyze the structure of a language. Published in 1956, the essay has served as a source of inspiration for linguists, literary theorists, and semioticians. Before going deep into the essay, one should know about aphasia. What is meant by aphasia? Aphasia is the inability to understand or produce speech as a result of brain damage. It is a condition that robs you of the ability to communicate. It can affect your ability to speak, write, and understand language, both verbal and written. For example, a person with aphasia may say, walk dog. The meaning for this phrase is understood as, I will take the dog for a walk. This is called aphasia. To make you remember like amnesia, a short-time memory loss, and this is aphasia, inability to speak. Roman Jakobson made the discovery that aphasia, which describes a variety of problems with verbal expression, usually caused by brain damage. A stroke victim, for instance, may have lost the full power of speech and is limited to certain kinds of verbal connection. This is called aphasia. Jakobson, in this essay, deals with two types of Aphasic disturbances. The limitation tends to work in either one of two possible ways. The deficiency can be on syntagmatic and paradigmatic. What is syntagmatic and what is paradigmatic? Let's see. Syntagmatic is the combination it comes into play whenever we form a sentence, whereas paradigmatic is the selection or the association of suitable entities. It applies at every stage that if any noun used in a sentence is actually after we have selected it from the vast inventory of language. Jakobson argues that these two cover two different realities of language. Syntagmatic is operational and the other is structural. On the other hand, selection and combination are two basic modes of behavior by which language users construct or encode to convey and understand or decode linguistic messages. Let's go back to a simple example. The cow sat on the mat. A goat stood on the bed. The first sentence has selected cow as a selection of four-legged animal, sitting as an example of posture, and the mat as a place to rest. The goat standing and the bed are thus excluded from the first sentence. The cow cannot be a goat. We cannot both stand and sit at the same time, and a mat cannot be a bed. Any similar terms that can be substituted for cow or for sat or mat are similarly excluded because their addition would be unwanted to the sentence. What are the similar terms for the above words? It is useless to substitute a cow for a bull or sat for crouch or squat. Jakobson realizes the fundamental role in which combination and selection play in a language. The selection and combination do not occur one after another without interruption, but they intermingle, cooperate at every level of speech. Messages are thus constructed by a combination which conjoins words and by selection in which particular word substitutes set of similar items. Applying these dichotomies are entirely different to the study of abnormal speech behavior. Jakobson divides all Aphasic disturbances into two major types. The first one is similarity disorders. The second one is contiguity disorders. Elements in a selection set are associated by similarity and those in combination by contiguity. In the similarity disorder, which relied on syntagmatic, the patient loses the capacity to select and substitute elements because he is confused with their similarity and cannot see their distinction. His power of combination helps him make grammatically good sentences, but he makes mistakes with content words. He also cannot recognize words without content. For him, only combined sequences are meaningful. Let's move on to the contiguity disorder, which relied on paradigmatic. Before that, what is the meaning for the word contiguity? Being in contact with something. In this type of aphasia, a person may have a good vocabulary, but he fails to put words together properly. The defect in the production of speech due to the loss of capacity to combine is called contiguity disorder. Note the point, lost the ability to combine linguistic elements. Their grammar fails them and they can express only heaps of words. The order of the words becomes chaotic or confusing, or any words with purely grammatical functions tend to drop out the picture altogether. This aphasia thus tend to sound infantile or childish and can manage only very short sentences. In the last section of the essay, Jakobson associates similarity and contiguity with most common figures of speech. They are metaphor and metonymy. We all know metaphor is a figure of speech. It is an object or action in a way that isn't literally true, but helps explain an idea or make a comparison. For example, she is a peacock. They make a comparison between two things that aren't alike but do have something in common. What is called metonymy in figure of speech? Let's see. Metonymy, as simple as such, is the substitution of the name. Note the point. Metaphor compares two unrelated concepts, but metonymy stands in for another word or phrase. An object or idea is referred to by the name of something closely associated with it as opposed to by its own name. For example, the White House declared that we are at war with China. Here, the White House is a metonymy for the president. Jakobson then uses the image of a psychological test given to children, whereby they say the first response that comes to their mind after having seen a particular image. According to their response, one can distinguish whether there is tendency or inclination towards metonymic process or metaphoric process. These two processes are therefore also translatable to the fine arts and are apparent in literature. How they are apparent in literature? Metaphor based on similarity is the fundamental trophy of poetry, since poetry is dominated by similarity relations of various arts. Metonymy based on contiguity is the major figure of prose, since prose uses contiguity relations. It can also be seen in other movements of literature, as Romanticism uses predominantly the metaphoric process and Symbolism the metonymic process. Jakobson also uses Cubism to highlight metonymy and Surrealism to highlight metaphor. What is meant by Cubism and Surrealism? Let's see. What is meant by Cubism? Cubism brought different views of subjects together in the same picture that appear fragmented and abstracted. In literature, Cubism is a style where writers try to tell a story from a multitude of perspectives rather than just one. The process of substitution, called metonymy, is used in Cubism. What is meant by Surrealism? It is an attempt to bridge together reality and imagination. This technique is used to help readers make new connections and expand the reader's reality, or rather the reader's idea of what reality is. Surrealism uses metaphors to compel the reader to think deeper and reveal subconscious meaning. Jakobson uses surrealism to highlight metaphor. Thus, the essay, Two Aspects of Language and Two Types of Aphasic Disturbances, served as a source of inspiration for linguistics, literary theorists, and semioticians. Any doubts can be clarified in the comment section. Thank you. Thank you for subscribing my channel.